The NFL is finally back, and I couldn't be happier. The Packers and Bears kicked off the 100th NFL season in a defensive battle, with the Packers ultimately getting the win. I thought Mitch Trubisky was disappointing in his Week 1 performance, as he led the Bears to only 3 points with all offseason to prepare against the defense he's seen before in his young career. Some people were really overreacting and saying Mitch simply can't get the job done, and while I don't think that is true, his performance was not great either. Now, with most of Week 1 in the books aside from the 2 Monday night games, there's a lot to talk about. In this video, I will talk about some of the biggest takeaways Week 1 had to offer. Before I get started though, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first takeaway from Week 1 is the Ravens are legit. Lamar Jackson was criticized all offseason long that he was a runner first and a quarterback second, and I think he silenced some of the critics today. Lamar threw for 324 yards on 5 touchdowns against the Dolphins while having a perfect passer rating, and the Ravens won by 7 touchdowns. The only thing the critics are saying now is that his performance was against the Dolphins, and while that is fair, Lamar can't control who he plays and when he plays them, nor can he control how good or bad a team is. Lamar only threw for 6 touchdowns in his entire rookie season, so him having 5 in Week 1 alone is fantastic in his development. Lamar looked great, and the Ravens, who have arguably the best secondary in the NFL, looked good as emerging star corner Marlon Humphrey and future Hall of Fame safety Earl Thomas both had interceptions. The Ravens play the Cardinals next week in their home opener and should be 2-0 to start the season. The Charm City should be looking forward to a very fun year. Moving on to the next takeaway from Week 1 involves another AFC North team, the Cleveland Browns. All we heard all offseason was how good the Browns are going to be and how they'll be contending for the AFC. Not just the AFC North, but the entire AFC. In very Cleveland-like fashion, they went out and laid a dud in Week 1. While I think the Browns are going to be okay eventually, I don't think people realize that Baker, Odell, and Jarvis are all actually humans and require time to get chemistry together, and aren't just on the same page that Tom Brady and Julian Edelman are on after being together for 9+ years. For now, the Browns are a great paper team, and while I do think they'll rebound this year, this week is going to be a very long week in terms of how they react and handle a 30-point Week 1 loss at home. Their next game is on Monday night against the Jets, and they really have nowhere to go but up, so that is a positive for the Browns. They're a very young team, and while Week 1 was a disappointment considering the circumstances leading up to it, they have 15 more games to improve. Credit goes out to the Tennessee Titans for showing up today and beating a good team in their place. The next takeaway involves Jameis Winston and the Buccaneers. Takeaway number 3 is that Jameis Winston is still Jameis Winston. Heading into this season, I thought Bruce Arians would turn that around, but unfortunately I don't think there's any changing Jameis Winston. His turnover-prone style of play is just his style of play. While it is only Week 1, Jameis did not look good as he threw 3 interceptions, including 2 pick sixes, and threw for just 194 yards and completed only 56% of his passes. I still think Jameis can have an above-average year statistically, and certainly the best year of his career, but the turnovers with Jameis will always be present. It was a very disappointing Week 1 for the Bucs, as Chris Godwin led the team in receiving yards with just 53. Mike Evans, who has had 1,000 yards in every year of his career so far, had just 2 catches for 28 yards. This was a disappointing game for the Bucs and especially Jameis Winston. The fourth takeaway is that the MVP is Patrick Mahomes to lose. Patrick Mahomes shredded the Jaguars defense in Week 1 as he threw for 378 yards and 3 touchdowns against one of the league's premier defenses. I thought this would be a lower scoring game and that the Jags would be able to limit the Chiefs offensively, but that simply was not the case. Sammy Watkins had the best game of his career as he went for 198 yards and 3 touchdowns, and the Chiefs put up 40 points in Jacksonville Stadium. As far as I'm concerned, the MVP is Pat's to lose, and it really isn't close. Pat is a man among boys, and he'll have a favorable Week 2 matchup against the Raiders to have another good statistical game. I love Patrick and want him to do well, and I think he won't have an issue with that going forward. I also think the possibility of him going for back-to-back MVPs before the age of 25 is very real. Moving on to the fifth and final takeaway of Week 1 is the AFC still runs through New England. I really want the Chiefs to win the AFC, as Patrick Mahomes getting a ring would be awesome for the entire NFL. However, the Patriots flat out manhandled the Steelers and gave up 3 points for the entire game. This could be due to Antonio Brown not being there, But James Conner had 10 carries for just 21 yards, which obviously has no impact on Antonio Brown being there or not being there. And Tom was Tom as he threw for 341 yards and 3 scores. I think the questions New England had going into the game, such as what would life without Gronk be like, were answered with a commanding 30-point win. Oh, and by the way, they're adding one of the league's best receivers to their roster this week. As far as I'm concerned, the AFC is a 2-team race between the Chiefs and the Patriots, but I do think the AFC runs through New England. I would love for Patrick and the Chiefs to bring the dynasty to a screeching halt, but that's months down the road. A few more takeaways from Week 1 include Dak is for real and is looking like he deserves a contract extension. I wouldn't pay him yet if I were Jerry because Dak is playing for the extension, and once he gets it, he may not push himself as hard as he is right now trying to get the extension. Another takeaway is that the Vikings are back and the defense is legit. They held Julio to 3 catches for 18 yards until the fourth quarter when they were up 28-0 at a point, and then Julio had a garbage time touchdown over a corner named Mark Fields. One final takeaway is that Kyler Murray himself is on the track to being a good player. He can't help the situation he is in with an absolutely horrible offensive line, but he came back from down 24-6 in his debut to lead a tie. I think that's impressive in itself and that Kyler is on the track to being a good player. That's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Again, thank you for watching, and have a great day.